Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. We got a good group. I'm just looking at the list here. That's great. We anticipated this would be a well-received topic. We'll get to that in just a second. Just a couple of items of news here. We're continuing to get good feedback on ongoing continuum transitions. We just want more of them. So as those projects become real and become active, we'll continue to support and to help share information and best practices. I think everybody knows we have a weekly call. It happens Thursdays at 3 o'clock. Bob Clark hosts that call. It's a chance for everybody to dial in that's involved in continuum transitions, and we're doing, I think, a pretty good job of level setting experiences and sharing things that are going well on these sites. We just really want the volume of these to pick up. We have a good process, a good product in place, good training in place to make this happen. So continue to keep the press on with our great continuum customers. The second thing I just want to mention is a little getting exciting about MPX controllers. We're starting to see more and more information, meetings, discussions about schedules involved with MPX controllers. Those are the BACnet over IP field bus controllers that will be coming in less than a year from now, we anticipate. So as more and more of that information becomes available, we'll start sharing more of that in terms of what the roadmap looks like, how we're going to support that roadmap, what training opportunities will become available. So it's just an exciting time as Smart Structure really gets close to the final delivery of the common field bus product. So with that, today's knowledge session, and I'll turn it over to Mike here in just a second, is about smart connectors and smart drivers. I have on my screen, hopefully everybody can see it, one of the slides that we're putting together for what we call the EcoStruxure story, or some will hear it talked about in terms of the technology stack. This slide kind of leads off our presentations that we've been doing on the EcoStruxure story. Basically 4 parts: to connect, collect, analyze, and take action, and then close that loop. The theme today is the connect piece, right? How we connect our products. We're all familiar with open protocols, BACnet, Modbus, LAN, but there are some other connection options as well. And that's what Mike and Brad and Jeff Morton will talk to us today, because it all leads to this technology stack where we have connected products, edge control, and applications and services. And you'll see on this chart, there's a connection among things on each of the rows and each of the levels. Third-party connected devices and third-party integrations are shown here as well. So it's important that we understand not only the defined open protocols, but some of the other tools that our engineers are putting in place to allow us to do these connections. So with that, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and give you the ball.
Okay.
All right. If I can. Can you grab the ball, Mike?
I grabbed
There
something.
you go. Okay. Thanks, Mike. You got it.
Okay. All right. So just a quick introduction. So my name is Mike Bealby. You'll see that I'm the director of EcoStruxure Labs and Tools. I sit in the lab. I work all the time in the lab. My background is R&D. Used to be products. It's now solutions. So I work with solutions in healthcare, in hotels, data centers, in buildings directly. And what we're going to show today is something that we've really come up with to help you out with those sticky situations where BACnet, Modbus has disappeared, and you just left holding your hands up in the air saying, how do I do this? So Brad's going to talk us through a couple of the slides, and I'll get into the technical stuff for those interested.
So, hi, and thanks for everyone joining. This is Brad Strabman. I'm actually in Dallas today. Normally I sit in Rockford, but I am the offer manager for Smart Connector as well as engineering efficiency across SBO in general. And we're glad you joined us for a little introduction to Smart Connector and Smart Driver. We'll walk you through some stuff here. Smart Connector really was the brainchild of the labs a while back, and it's really a way to efficiently develop and create new integration capabilities with EcoStruxure Building Operation. While the announcement was maybe a few weeks ago, the Smart Connector framework's been around for a little while, and there's already been some real cool solutions put into place. So the intent of this presentation is to just give you an overview of what it is, how you get started, some examples of some solutions that are already in place, and then open it up for any questions and things that you have. So, Mike, next slide. As you know, EcoStruxure Building Operation already is a pretty powerful platform. And more we're seeing specs that require more integration, more capabilities to pull information together, and we really want EcoStruxure Building Operation to become that platform that aggregates all that data. You already had all kinds of capability in the product to bring that information into Enterprise Server with the native protocols like BACnet and Modbus and LonWorks already supported. The web service is available. There was integration with other Schneider products and solutions to expand your capability. And now with Smart Connector, the potential to integrate with other technologies, it becomes almost endless. You really have an open system that you can seamlessly integrate information together to provide value to your customer. Could you jump one more slide, Mike?
You want me to play the video?
Yeah, so we're going to start out with a short video that kind of introduces at a real high level what the Smart Connector is. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this. If you can't, it's available at smartconnectorserver.com, so you can go there anytime.
All right, let me figure out what this is. Okay. Get it on full screen for you guys. So you guys all can see it, right?
Yep.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happens when you have to connect two systems together to do something like share information? Well, if you are lucky, both of these systems speak the same language, and the problem is easy to solve. But let's say you want the building management system in your hotel to get information from the hotel's reservation booking system. That way you know which rooms are occupied, so you can control the temperature for occupied rooms differently from unoccupied rooms. But you can't, because they don't communicate in the same language. Now the problem becomes more complex. Now you have to write some kind of translator program called middleware. Even worse, your software team needs weeks to create it, and they tell you the risk is high and they won't meet the deadline. Smart Connector from Schneider Electric to the rescue. Smart Connector is a very efficient way to develop, test, and deploy middleware. Smart Connector simplifies integrations that were once not possible without a significant amount of work. Translation between systems, systems aggregation, and data sharing to the cloud are all examples. We call this a Smart Connector extension. These Smart Connector extensions are built from the Smart Connector framework. Once deployed and configured, these extensions run completely unattended. So what's so cool about Smart Connector? Smart Connector gives you an integrated web interface, so you can configure and manage your extensions. Smart Connector also includes integrated licensing, so you can be in control of where your Smart Connector extension is deployed, protecting your own business logic and revenue source. For more information about Smart Connector, sign up at www.smartconnectorserver.com.
There you go, Brad.
Thanks, Mike. So as I mentioned, that video does provide a good introduction at a really high level to explain to maybe potential clients what your integration capabilities are. Smart Connector in itself is not a complete solution. Jump one back. It's a framework that allows you to develop these integrations quickly and efficiently. So it allows you to very quickly put together a solution with a third party or another data source that allows you to leverage ecosystem building operations. And there's lots of value it can have for everybody involved in the food chain. for your customer, as I mentioned earlier, there seems to be more and more specs that come into play, more and more requirements to aggregate data, to pass data around, to pass data to the cloud, to use business intelligence to drive operational efficiency and that sort of thing. So solutions for your end customers are much, much more capable now with the value of Smart Connector. For you guys, for system integrators, obviously it allows you the potential to provide almost endless solutions. You're no longer hamstrung by long development cycles if I want to integrate with this system or that system. So there's more jobs that hopefully you can win, more capabilities that you can provide. And then there is this sort of a new play for a Smart Connector developer. So developers can use this framework, and a developer is just a competent .NET programmer, can use this framework to develop some solutions that they can potentially then leverage to use on multiple projects. So there's even potential for developers. Not only does it speed their development, but it offers them potential to maybe monetize their solution that they invested some time in. So we'll move on to a little bit more technical stuff on what Smart Connector is. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so Smart Connector, I will say that you're looking for a different type of guy. Your normal application guy is not the guy you're looking for here. You're looking for a .NET developer that's comfortable in the Visual Studio environment, writing C#. So generally, you might need to get somebody else to do that, or use the community to find one of these guys to develop something for you. But what you get is you sign up on that web link that we saw at the end of the video. So that's smartconnectorserver.com. Once you sign up on there, you get vetted, and it's not much of a vetting process. We kind of want to get this out to as many people as we can, especially our eco experts. And then you then get an email telling you where to get the code from a MyGet, which is a private feed. And you can then download these Smart Connector libraries. And the good thing about these Smart Connector libraries is that we've already kind of nailed down the connection to SBO. And at the moment, it's using the EWS, so the EcoStruxure Web Services. And we've nailed that down. And we've got a client version of it, and we've got a server version of it. And you get that as libraries. And you can be assured that every time there's a new version of SBO, we test that against that and make sure those crazy developers haven't broken anything. So that's that safety factor that you've got there. And then what you get to work on is that third-party software part. Put right in the API side of it, and not worrying about how you connect into SBO. And then once you've done all of that, you then develop a Smart Connector extension. And then you can deploy it. So you build, run, and test. And when you deploy this, it actually runs as a Windows service. And what you do is you get an integrated web management portal with the Smart Connector runtime. And you need a runtime license, a commercial license. At the moment, there's no cost for that. I'm sure that'll change some point when they see how fantastic this is. But maybe not. Maybe it's an enabling software. And it's just about selling boxes. So then you go onto that integration web management portal, and then you enable the Smart Connector extensions you want to do, and you put the license in there for the framework. And sometimes the developers themselves, they'll say, you know what, this extension is pretty valuable. I'm going to put a license on there. And that's generally how they would aim some money from selling these extensions. And then once you've installed that and it's running, it kind of sticks in the background and runs as a Windows service. So you don't really see it. And it's because it's Windows, it runs on Windows machines. So it doesn't run on an AS. So here's all the versions that we've got. Currently we're at 2.2. There is 2.3 coming out with a few added features. But you're limited in terms of what you can do with Smart Connector at the moment with what you can do with EWS. So that's data values, history or trending, an alarm, an acknowledgement. You can do all of those with that. At some point in the future, it's probably the end of this year or maybe Q4, we'll widen that pipe to give you a full, what we call CRUD, which is create, read, update, and delete objects in SBO. Okay, so that's my spiel.
So that's a brief overview of Smart Connector. I know it's a little abstract because it is a middleware. It's not something you really see because it just provides the mechanism to share data between things. But how do you get started? You can get a whole lot more information in various different ways. One way Mike already mentioned is to jump out to smartconnectorserver.com. There's where you'll find that video. You can sign up. It uses various ways. You can sign up with your Google name, with your company name, that sort of thing. Once you sign up, then you can request to be a developer. So you may say, why are there two signups? Well, one signup sort of gives you access to the site and gives you access to some extra documentation and things like that. And then there's an additional step needed to actually become a developer. Currently, it's open to anyone. We have no restrictions on who can become a Smart Connector developer. Obviously, the requirement is you have to know .NET and be able to code in Visual Studio. So it's not for everyone, but it's also not rocket science. You don't have to have any special training or special background to use it. So once you agree to the developers agreement, you can get a hold of the Smart Connector framework, install it on your machine, run it locally, and you can start developing, running and testing things locally as much as you want. Once you've developed, as Mike mentioned, an extension, so there's a Smart Connector framework, and then typically based on what you're trying to integrate with, you would develop an extension. Once you're ready to deploy that, then you do have to get a commercial runtime license. And again, you can get that from smartconnectorserver.com. There is a part number listed there down at the bottom. The only cost involved with deploying Smart Connectors currently is the cost of that deployment license. So when you are ready to deploy on an actual project your Smart Connector solution, you do have to purchase this particular part number. It's once per server install, so it's a very minimal cost. I think currently I'd have to check exactly what the list price is, but it runs around $250 for you. So it's a very cost-effective solution. It's a one-time cost. There's no annual piece to it. Other things you should consider, though, as you're developing a solution, is that there may be other costs involved with the other third parties. So there may be costs involved with connecting to whatever third-party system you decide to connect to. Obviously, the developer is going to have some cost and time that he takes to develop the solution. But when it comes to the Smart Connector framework, the only cost, it's really an enabler, so the only cost that Schneider has on it is the deployment license, which you can see there.
Okay.
We kind of have taken the approach that we want to sort of crowdsource this. The Smart Connector framework really is an enabler to help you quickly develop solutions. So to help facilitate that, we've also created a Smart Connector community. And the developers community is probably your first line resource for anything you want to learn about Smart Connector. It's got an active group of developers that monitor it all the time. So if you post a question, a request, a problem, it's probably going to get answered quite quickly, or maybe has been answered already. There's the current documentation exists there, including the developer's guide and the installation guide. The developer's guide is incredibly well written, almost as a tutorial. So it will take you through exactly how to get up and running and build a sample extension. In addition, we've started to create a marketplace, and we're obviously in the very early stages of that. But the intention of the marketplace is to allow developers or system integrators to promote their final Smart Connector solutions to a broader audience, and potentially to request the solution. So For example, we've got one solution that's been created for hotels that's sort of been packaged up and can be repurposed on any other hotel project that uses that same third-party software. So we've got that Smart Connector extension up on the marketplace to allow a broader audience to see availability to that. So if you develop an extension that you think could be valuable to a wider audience, you would be able to promote that extension through the marketplace also. And I don't know, Mike, if you're able, can you jump up to the community quick so we can show them how to get there? There's obviously a link directly here, but I know that you're not always going to have this PowerPoint available. If you just jump out to the Echo Building, echobuildings.schneider-electric.com, which is, I believe, where everybody's been directing you, and then head over to the communities. Under the communities, you can search for developer, and you'll find the Smart Developer Community. And Mike is showing you the Smart Developer Community page. As you see on the right-hand side, there's access to most of the current documentation. You can submit requests for new smart connectors here if you wish. If you have some kind of integration that maybe you don't have access to a .NET developer, you can potentially submit it here and get the development community to maybe chime in on maybe it's already been done, or maybe someone would like to approach that project themselves.
So this is an interesting. Some people have been asking us about OPC, and I said, it might take some time for the R&D to get around to it. But let me just go ask the community if there is somebody developing an OPC smart connector out there. Well, look what popped up. So people do stuff out there. We're not tracking every single thing because we don't know whether they're just playing around with it or they're. But eventually, what Brad was referring to, you will come to put these things on the community. So if we go to the community, the Smart Place community, you'll see it's pretty spartan at the moment. There's a couple of test ones on there. A couple of Cerberus was something we developed so we could push stuff to the cloud and to other databases. Echo Lake was an integration we did to Amazon Echo. So that's that. Where you can say Alexa, what is do this, but what we did was we did an integration for a hotel, we did an integration for hospitals, but then we do proof of concept, so we give that code away if you actually want it. And then this was the one that we did that was done in the UK, and if I click on that, it tells you a little bit about it. It tells you who developed it. And it's basically where to get your contact from. So you contact that person, they'll give you the stuff. But a lot of information is available about that. So that's what we're trying to do for you, is to give you a community so that you can search back for that. Back to the original. You can ask questions, like I did. Who's doing that? You can maybe say, I'll pay somebody to develop a smart connector. I don't have those WizKid .NET developers in there, so I'm willing to shell out some money. Anybody want to do one of these for me? And of course you'd have to specify it, but that's going to be the power of it, is the ability to crowdsource. And there's, at the moment, there's about 350 people signed up for this out there, and developing who knows what. Let's go back to here. So was that good, Brad? Is that what you wanted to talk about?
Absolutely. Next slide.
Okay. So this is, like I said, it's an open application framework. The framework itself doesn't do a lot until you write your extension. And some extensions have been, I'm going backwards, am I? Oh, no. Right, okay, good. So here's some of the ideas that we've got. HL7 in healthcare, the ability to send messages from SBO to paging systems, room booking systems, electronic locks in hotels, lighting systems we've been working with. We work with Cisco EnergyWise. We've been pushing data up to the cloud to do Power BI and dashboard in there. Like I said, we did some really cool stuff with Alexa. So we could say something like, Alexa, tell Hilton I'm cold, and it will increase the temperature. We can say, Alexa, tell Hilton I'm going to sleep now, and then it shuts the curtains, it turns the lights out, it does a scene. So it's pretty powerful what you can do with this stuff. There's really, the only limitation is going to be your imagination. And like I say, to develop, what you can do is develop a proof of concept within a couple of days. So when you see something that's a bit more exotic on your specs, you can say, let's build them a smart connector and not only show them on PowerPoint that we can do, we can actually give them a demo. And that's a powerful win for you guys. Anything else you want to add, Brad?
No, I guess the only thing you might be thinking, well, okay, it's not a full solution, so what does it take to get to a full solution? We've actually got quite a bit of history with Smart Connector and people using it for developing project-specific solutions. And these are not any, obviously, set-in-stone facts, but it typically, to develop an integration solution is about a day's worth of work. Obviously, if it's a more complex solution, it's multiple days, but one of our main Smart Connector developers internally that's done lots of solutions across Schneider, his feedback is most of the projects he's worked on, they're 4 to 8 hour solutions, because you don't have to worry about the security, access control, all that stuff that's typical on any kind of middleware, that's already done for you. It's really just connecting the details with the third-party system. So, as Mike said, the potential for solutions is pretty much endless. If you're able to grab data from that other system, it's pretty capable of integrating. Nicole, I did see some questions come through. Maybe now is a good time to answer a couple.
Brad, I actually don't have any in my chat.
Oh,
so
I do.
Maybe they are chatting with you privately?
That could be. So yeah, I do have a couple questions. And Mike, you can maybe help us out. First question is, can it be used outside of SBO, say with a competing BMS?
Continuum BMS. We're looking at that because
Mike, a competing BMS.
BMS. Well, obviously, it's not what we've designed it for. we designed it to add more business to it. So, because it's software, you can potentially do whatever you want with it. But the value of it is that we've kind of figured out all of that hard work on how to connect to SBO. And so you don't have to write an EWS integration endpoint. You've got all that done. So you can do what you want with it. Somebody might ask you some questions when you come for a commercial license while you're doing that, and we're not involved.
Sure. Thanks. And another question we have is it a correct assumption that the goal of Smart Connector is to collect, store, and normalize data from disparate systems into a centralized monitoring and control platform?
It's one of them. For instance, Chris Roberts, who's our solution architect, came to us the other day and he said to us, we've got that bed head over there. So in a hospital, you have a bed head, and it has an ability to send an alarm out when somebody presses a button to get the nurse's attention. And he said, here's the protocol API for it. Can you write a Smart Connector extension to do that and get the data coming into SBO? So we did it in a day. We were having data coming out of that bed head in a day. So that's not that. And then Alexa is not, another way. Another one was paging. So we had a hospital in Australia, and they wanted us to go to a particular paging system. We couldn't do it natively inside SBO, but we could write a Smart Connector extension to do that and push alarms to a paging system out there.
Sure. Ultimately, SBO is the platform where the data ends up residing in. Smart Connector in itself would not be a normalization. You could use it to normalize some data, but it would not be the central place to store all that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, software, so you could put some normalization code in there, but it wasn't an image. It was kind of convert from one protocol to another, kind of like a gateway, building a gateway.
Absolutely. And then we had the question about are there are there fees, any recurring fees, and the licensing fee for each EWS. So with Smart Connector, as I mentioned, the only fee to deploy your Smart Connector solution is the deployment license, and that part number was listed on a previous slide. There are no fees related to EWS if you're using a Smart Connector. There are no recurring fees, so it's a very cost-effective solution for integrating data. Okay, and on the next slide. So again, at the end, we'll take additional questions on Smart Connector, but in the interest of time, I want to move on to our next topic, which is Smart Driver. So adding to the open story for building operation, in 1.8, they added the capability to provide a Smart Driver interface. And what that allows you to do is basically embed some software in the firmware of an AS to actually utilize the ports of the device to connect to third-party hardware. Currently, we have only a couple of Smart Drivers available. One of them, which probably isn't too interesting to the U.S. market, is for an ESMI Fire Panel. That driver is available, but the one that was recently released to the U.S. is the ASCII serial driver, which was released about a month ago. So I am going to hand it over to Jeff Morton, and he is going to give you a little bit more on Smart Driver, including a demo.
All right. Yeah. Do I have to give the ball back, or does you can just take it? Oh, you can just.
I think I might have just stolen it.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks very much for the intro, Brad. So yeah, I'm Jeff Morton. I'm on the Process Excellence and Quality team, reporting under Matt Green, and I'm delighted to give you guys a quick show and tell of the Smart Driver, specifically the ASCII Smart Driver that Brad was just talking about. So the idea here is that not only am I going to show you the ASCII serial driver, but I'm also going to be showing you the process of installing it, which is going to apply to all the smart drivers. So you'll get an idea of how they're installed. The really nice thing about the ASCII serial driver is that there's no cost. It's a free download off the exchange. There's no cost to install it into an ASP or an enterprise server. Even though some smart drivers might have a cost associated, this one does not, and so it's a great chance to get your feet wet and try it out for yourself. So for our demo, I've got a very simple setup here. I've got two ASPs. Together, we're going to be loading the smart driver into each of them and setting up some dirt simple programs so that from one ASP, we're going to turn a light on and off on another ASP just by sending serial commands. And so this isn't really something that makes sense to do on a project, but the concepts we're going to use, initiating serial messages from an ASP, because maybe there's a third-party device you need to interface with certain serial messages, or receiving serial messages from a third-party device and acting on them. Those are both things that we're going to be doing in this little simple Hello World solution. So there's a few steps involved in installing a smart driver. I'll be showing each of these steps. I might flip back to the slide as a reference, but there's actually, when you download the smart driver off the exchange, there's actually a great document that walks you through the smart driver, what it is, how to apply it, the settings, etc. So I'm just going to search for ASCII Smart Driver. And here it is. Here's the product announcement, which is of a lot of value. It's got good info in there. Here's the user guide. And then this is actually the downloadable for the smart driver. So this is worth a look. I'll click download there. It's got lots of great information about how it works, what the properties are, how you can configure it. And then I'm actually going to download the smart driver itself, which is a zip file. And inside the zip file, you'll see a few things. It's got separate SDRV files for an enterprise server and for an ASP, and then it's got a README that's a PDF. A README, of course, is of value, and I'm going to be just using the ASP driver file here. Something to mention, some of you may have noticed this, it says ES and ASP. Not listed here are AS or ASB. That's because the Smart Driver right now only supports the ES and ASP. If you need to do an ASCII serial interface, use an ASP. Don't expect to use one of our vintage automation servers because it does not support Smart Driver. All right, so we've got our files downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and do my first step because there's a little delay in SBO for this to take effect. The first thing we need to do, and this caught me off guard the first time, you need to go in the control panel, and just to make sure that you're wanting to install a Smart Driver, there is an extra security step here. Within security settings, you have to enable Smart Driver, which is this checkbox. If you're just logged in directly to an ASP that's not a child of an enterprise server, this setting takes effect immediately. If, however, you're using an ASP that's beneath an enterprise server, it takes a little while for this setting to propagate. So like if I look right now at one of my ASPs, the first thing you'll notice is this is grayed out because it's an inherited property, but you'll see that it is currently grayed out, and it's not checked. I found that after a minute or two, that setting propagates. If it doesn't, I've had 100% success with warm starting my servers, and then it shows up. But now that I've made that change, that should start its thing, so we'll just look at this list of steps. This is the first one we just did. We enabled Smart Driver deployment, and so that's going to propagate down to our ASPs and allow us to install the Smart Driver. So then the next thing we'll do is install the Smart Driver in our system folder. And once we've installed it, then we'll be able to create new interfaces on each of our ASPs and choose that Smart Driver that we installed. Then we're going to configure it, and then we're going to do some more stuff to make it work. So now that we've given it a couple minutes to let it marinate, let's see if that setting has taken effect. It sure has. It's wonderful. It's like a cooking show. So we pulled it out of the oven. It's all nice and cooked. So now what we can do, as we saw in our steps earlier, we're going to install the Smart Driver in each of our ASPs. So there's this folder called Smart Drivers that should show up starting with 1.8. If I click in here now, you'll see that it's currently empty, but I can right-click and create a new driver, and I'm going to call this ASCII Serial. And click Next. And here it's prompting me for that SDRV file. That's what we got out of that download off of the Exchange. So I just browse, I get copied to my desktop, there it is. And I create. And so now that Smart Driver is loaded in this ASP. But that is specific to the server, so I need to do the same thing in my second ASP. Smart Driver, new driver. And you could really call it whatever you want, but this is what you'll need to select when you create your new interface in a step or two. So again, it's on my desktop, and I select it. So now we've got the Smart Driver installed on each of our ASPs. So now I'm going to create a new interface. The new interface, and then we've got Smart Driver interface, and specifically this is a serial-only interface, so I'm going to choose serial and create. So now that we've got our Smart Driver serial interface, oh, and I should have picked my Smart Drive file, or SDRV file. I can do that here. So I can select my driver reference. I choose from my system folder that Smart Driver. I and select. And so now there's some custom parameters. If you look at the user manual, it explains that there's some ways you can set bit timeouts and advanced stuff here. It does work without specifying custom parameters, but that allows you to have a bit more control over how it works. We will have to specify the port that this is to use. So I've got my cable attached to COM-A, so I'll just pick COM-A. And then I'm very comfortable with 9600, let's say 8 data bits, no parity, and 1 stop bit. A lot of stuff uses that. So we'll go ahead and save. So now we've got our smart driver set up with a reference to that smart driver file, and then the COM port that we want to use, and we've got all of our settings for how the serial should be transmitted. So now we actually need to create a device beneath this interface. So we'll create a new smart driver device, and I'll just leave the default name here. And then beneath that device, we can have just 2 objects. One is a string input and one's a string output. So I'll create a new smart driver input point, and this is of type string. And then we'll do the same for an output point. New smart driver output point, and that needs to be a string. And that's it. So these are the ways that we talk with that smart driver and get it to send data for us. So the input point is information that the ASP receives over the serial port. The output point is where we write our data to that we want it to send over the serial port. So at this point, if I go ahead and refresh my serial interface, I now see my status is online, configuration status is valid because I have my device created and I have these string objects in place. So now I'm going to do the same really quick for our second ASP, new interface, smart driver, serial. Then beneath that, we're going to set it up again with that same smart driver file. We're going to tell it its port. It's also on COM-A. We're going to use the same parameters for our data on the serial port. Save. And then again, we're going to create that device. Create that string input and output beneath it. So this is, for those of you that are familiar with Continuum or with IAA, you're used to being able to write your own methods of writing to serial ports and reading from serial ports. In Continuum, I know it was using like PE drivers, where you could actually use PE code to read and write from a serial port. So there's a little bit more configuration up front, but once you've done these steps that we just finished here, the setup is all in place, and now the programs are actually dirt simple to communicate between the 2 devices. So on my slide, I showed you we're going to have a light bulb, and I've got one here. It's beneath ASP1, so I'll just very quickly do our super convenient I/O bus add. So I'll just drag this over, and then beneath that I/O module, I'm going to create a new output. We're going to call it light. I'll put that on channel 1. Create it. And because you guys don't have the benefit of seeing the light in person, we'll just make use of our watch window here and drag it down here. So when we want to turn that light on, it clicks on in here, but you can also see it down here in the watch window. Right now it is on. So first let's tackle this ASP. We want to say an And a third party might have a much more refined protocol. But our protocol is going to be when you receive capital O little n, that means turn the light on. Capital O little ff, that means turn the light off. So I'm just going to make a script program, new program. And then I'm going to edit that program. And so we will actually bind in that string from our smart driver device, and then we'll bind out to that light output. So I'll say string input, and I'll just call it strn, and then numeric output light. So this is going to be a dirt simple program. If strn equals on, then turn on light. And then we'll do exactly the same thing for turning it off. If strin, biggest challenge here is typing correctly, equals off, then turn off light. And I could have much more concise programming. I could say light equals 1 or light equals 0. Sometimes that does PWM stuff, though. So I'm just keeping it simple and making it easy. So now I just need to make my bindings. I can either do that through Workstation or here through the script editor. I'll just do it here. So our smart driver, we have our string input, and we'll just bind that here. And then for our I/O bus, we've got our light. And many of you remember that the requested value is how we drive that on and off. So I can just drag that here. So I've got my bindings made. So now I'm going to go ahead and save to apply those bindings. So now this program is monitoring the serial traffic that this ASP hears over COM port A. And if ever it hears ON, it's going to turn the light on. If ever it hears OFF, it's going to turn it off. Now there's one more little tip here that's going to be really helpful, and that is that the smart driver runs really fast. It runs faster than task 3, and so in order for this program to be reliable, we really want to turn it up to task 1 so that it's listening every 100 milliseconds to that serial port. So the way we're going to do that is just changing our task here on the program, task 1, and then saving. And similarly, just to make sure that I don't have any issues, when I look at my bindings, and here I've got my binding out to that light point, I'm just going to navigate to that, and I'm going to set this to 100 milliseconds because that's the program task time. So I want to make sure we don't lose any writes to that light. So let me drag our string input and output for that ASP and our string input and output for the other ASP. And so ASP1 is the one that has the light on it. And then ASP2 is the one that we're going to initiate our commands from. So right now the light is on, but then here the string output point for ASP2, if we set this to OFF, and then, let's see, I'll move it over here, and click OK, then right away, that light turned off. And some of you may have seen very quickly, if your WebEx refresh was good enough, the string input point on ASP1 showed that off come in. So now we can click this again and send it on. And it shows on. So let's make things just a little bit more complicated. That was our initial hello world. Let's say that we want to send out an acknowledgement, because that's a pretty real world thing. So then we could have string output str out. And so I can say if we receive an on, then we're going to set str out equals on act. So whenever we receive on, we're going to send out the message on ACK. And then if ever we receive off, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to send off ACK. And so now we just need to bind that up. So now I'm going to show you the other way of doing our binding here on the script program through Workstation. I can just bind this to our string output and save that. And then again, just to be safe, I'm going to navigate to this and tell it, because this program's running at task 1, I want it to be able to receive updates every 100 milliseconds. So that now, when we send an off, turned off the light, and then you saw an off ACK pop up. And that actually popped up on ASP2, the one that we're sending the commands from. So same thing, if I send it to on, we got an on request, the light turned on, and then we saw the on ACK generated. So as one final little exercise, just to have tons of fun here, let's say we want to automate sending the commands out of ASP2. So I can just create a new program, and I'll call this the toggler. Getting super creative here. All right, so we're going to edit the toggler, and we're going to make it dirt simple, where just on each change of the second, it's going to send out an on or an off, depending on whether it's an even or odd second. Here's the toggler. It's just going to have a single string output. And I'll say if TS mod 2, then, so that's the modulus of the time in seconds. So if it's even, this will evaluate to false. If it's odd, it will evaluate to true. And I'll say STROUT is on, else. All right, so this program is nice and simple. I'm just going to bind it up now to our local smart driver interface on that ASP, to its output, and save that. And then we'll just make sure, even though this program's running at task 3, we'll make sure that we get immediate updates to that binding point. So now, you can see my watch window is having trouble keeping up with it, but we're having toggles every second, back and forth. And that's because one of our ASPs is initiating ASCII serial messages. The other ASP is receiving those ASCII serial messages, acting on them, and then sending acknowledgments. So we've got a pretty trivial thing going on over here, but it's actually a really fun demonstration of how we're able to arbitrarily craft messages and act on messages as a result of the new smart driver for ASCII serial interfaces. So that is all I was planning on demoing. I'd be happy to entertain questions on the smart driver, on the ASCII serial smart driver, and of course we also still have Brad and Mike, very capable and willing to answer any questions on Smart Connector.
Okay, I have a couple of questions that may not pertain to what you just did, Jeff, but do you mind if I go ahead and ask?
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay, the first question we have is there a interface with Adelphi Hotel software? Maybe Brad or Mike.
There's not one that I'm currently aware of, but our suggestion would be to make a post on the developer community, and you'll get pretty quick feedback as this one Yes,
I
one
wanted
exists.
Brad. I mean, just go on that forum and just ask, and if you don't hear anything, just say, does anybody want to develop it, and see what comes up.
Okay. Our next question we have here is, how do you create a Smart Driver SDRV file?
It's a great question, and I didn't point that out on the slide. So the difference between the Smart Connector, we've taken the approach of crowdsourcing. We want to get as many developers engaged to develop cool and creative solutions. For Smart Driver, because it's firmware, it could potentially have some serious effects if some things aren't done quite correctly. The Smart Driver development is only done internally. And as I mentioned, the two drivers we have available now are the ESB driver and the ASCII serial driver. We are evaluating the development of other drivers, and currently those are all done through our development resources in the UK. So if you have sort of high demand for a specific hardware device that you'd like to support or a specific driver need, please send us that information, and then we can evaluate and figure out when and if we can get that Smart Driver done. We've got some parallel activities going on to maybe get us a broader scope of drivers, but short answer to your question is Schneider Electric has to develop those drivers currently. So any feedback you have on what we should be working on next is greatly appreciated.
Brad, I did have a question from the hospital guys that were here yesterday, and they said, is there a current roadmap for smart drivers that's available to see? I wasn't aware of one.
There are we are not actively developing any smart drivers at this time, but we will have a roadmap for that in the near future. As I mentioned, there's some other potential avenues we're going down to see if there's a way of building a smart driver library quickly. And we're even entertaining the possibility of opening that up to a larger community to develop also. But at the moment, it's internal only.
Okay, again, and then I have...
Sorry. Provide that feedback. If it's something that you think there's a large, a decent market for, make sure you provide that feedback to us, and we'll evaluate the potential.
Okay, and is there any word on an SNMP smart driver to host SNMP devices such as APC, third-party, UPSESs, or PDUs?
That is one of the smart drivers at the top of our list. I do not have a date on that yet, but it is probably the next one that we will try and produce. But I don't have any specific date on when that will be available. But that's great feedback.
And that's it for questions on my end. Anyone else have any questions in their chat or are wanting to ask, please do so in the chat area of our WebEx.
There's nothing more that I see.
Mike or Jeff, do you guys have any in yours?
No. But I'll tell you what, if you guys have got questions, go to the forum and ask them there, especially if they're technical. If you guys need any help out there figuring out what type of new smart kit you need, I can help you there too. I'll help you with anything you need, even proof of concepts given time to do it. We have lots of sample code. Any of the things that we've done as proof of concept are available for you. I will say that we didn't really touch on support. How do we get support? You're on a site and you've got something, you think you've got a bad smart connector. Everything's got to go up to PSS. And I've talked to the guys at PSS. I've told them what they need to do to troubleshoot. And at the end of the day, if there's a problem with the framework, it will come back to me and my team. But generally, if somebody's developed a smart extension, they're supporting it and they're documenting it. And if you ever believe or ever think that these guys aren't doing a good job, let us know, and we'll get back to them and tell them they need to get their acting gear.
Okay, Mike, and thanks for your participation today. Thanks, Jeff Morton and Brad Stradman as well. I really appreciate this, guys. As everybody knows, we record these. These will be posted. This session will be posted, on the Exchange under our knowledge reinforcement section. Okay, so that'll be done over the next couple of days for people to review. So with that, we'll close up this session and thank everybody for their participation and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, everybody.